Hello and welcome. I think it's safe to say that Star Trek has had a significant impact on modern culture. Yes, there's certainly the convention scene. There's the way Star Trek has inspired fans to write their own stories. There are the novels, board games, and Christmas decorations. It's inspired movies, and references to it can be found both in mainstream TV productions and webcomics alike. It even has its own tabletop role-playing game system. But more than all that on a media level, Star Trek has played an important role in contributing tangibly to the day-to-day fabric of everyone's life, not just the fans. NASA is well known for the way it uses the names of ships or characters from the various series of Star Trek. Then there's things such as universal translators, natural language queries, that's when you just talk to a computer and it works out what you're asking for, hyposprays, touchpads, clamshell communicators, automatic sliding doors, wireless earpieces that look ridiculous. Okay, maybe it's a stretch to say that Star Trek inspired every last one of these innovations. Maybe some, or even all of them, are obvious and would have been made regardless, but it's no joke to say that Star Trek predicted them and in some cases came up with the idea first. So the other day when I saw an old news article where the author bemoaned that Star Trek The Next Generation was such a product of its culture, it made me realize that for all the ways we recognize how Star Trek influenced our culture, we forget how much our culture first influenced Star Trek. Right from the very beginning. What's that? You're skeptical about this? Alright, let's grab the closest place box and take a trip back to 1966. In 1966, when Star Trek originally premiered, America was a nation embroiled in war. The summer of the year prior, President Johnson, a man who had campaigned on a message of peace, announced that the draft was doubling from 17,000 men to 35,000 men per month for the Vietnamese War. For those of us who weren't alive during this time, or anywhere near this time, we look back on the threat of the communist bogeyman with ridicule, but we forget that the face of communism was the Soviet Union. This is the same Soviet Union that, during World War II, stole the evacuation of civilians from Leningrad and instead insisted that Leningrad break through the German lines. The same Soviet Union that forced 18 million people through its gulags, a set of forced labor camps that had a death rate of 1 in 10 people from 1930 to 1950. The same Soviet Union that at one point during the Korean War had directly supplied North Korea with 1/3 of its air force and was secretly sending pilots to fly under Chinese and North Korean flags. In the 1960s, America was caught up in a Cold War that threatened to turn hot as the Soviet Union and the United States fought one another through proxy conflicts such as North Korea, Vietnam, and the Bay of Pigs. Neither side truly declared war with one another, and yet still they were in a constant state of combat. In 1957, the Soviet Union successfully launched the first man-made satellite where it orbited the planet for 3 weeks until the batteries ran out. There's an amazing scene at the beginning of the movie October Skies that captures how Americans reacted to Sputnik. There is fear, there is indifference, but mainly there's just the looming threat of the unknown. What was the satellite doing? Was it taking photographs of our military bases? Did it have a bomb on board? We didn't know, and it was frightening. A decade later, in the height of the space race and just 3 years before America would land a man on the moon, Star Trek brought this Cold War to the galactic level. In The Balance of Terror, a science fiction retelling of the submarine movie The Enemy Below, we see two sides of a century-old Cold War as having both hawkish and peaceful individuals. In Arena, we see the desperation that comes with an arms race and a call to put away our savage natures, though you probably best know it as the episode where Kirk fought a guy in a rubber lizard costume. The Taste of Armageddon shows a world that had made a state of Cold War the norm for hundreds of years. Errand of Mercy, The Alternative Factor, and these are all just from the first season, each one ending with a somber reflection from the bridge crew on the dangers of such a tenuous conflict or the cost that a Cold War comes with.
Captain, the universe is safe for you and me. But what of Lazarus? What of Lazarus?
American culture also set the stage for what would become one of the biggest disagreements for the entire series. Which Star Trek Discovery character are you? Find out just by entering your social security number. No, wait, sorry, I was scrolling through BuzzFeed and got distracted. Let me look through my notes real quick here and... Oh no. Oh no. Hold on, I need to prepare for this one. Okay. The question is the Federation the military? This is such a dumb question to me, as the answer is obviously entirely depends on which series of Star Trek you're watching and whether or not you decide that later series should trump earlier canon. Simple. In later series, Star Trek becomes decidedly less militaristic and more like the United Nations or Greenpeace before becoming militaristic again. But we'll save that kind of talk for if I ever do another one of these in the series. There's a reason I gave the brief summary of America at War. Beyond several episodes designed to be allegories about the Cold War or Cold War mentality, the impact of a nation at war permeates the series regardless of whether or not it was Gene Roddenberry's intent or desire for the Federation to be the military. Here's a rapid-fire list of what I mean. The rankings of Starfleet follow that of the United States Navy. Their ships have similar bridge positions. Their ships have commissioning plaques. In Season 1, we see both Spock and Kirk face as court-martial in the episodes Menagerie and Court-Martial. These court-martials are not held in a civilian court of law, but before a panel of military officers. Also, as a military tribunal, Starfleet is referenced to as
The service.
Entering Starfleet requires you attend
The Academy.
The Academy. The Academy.
The Academy.
You don't take vacation, you take
Shore leave.
or request.
It's a leave of absence.
And this doesn't even begin to include all the phrases you would expect on a military vessel rather than a private vessel, such as being confined to the brig or relieved from duty. So is Starfleet the military? Looking at the original series, the answer is yes. We were a nation at war, and a nation that was ramping up its level of involvement in war. Those facts, so easily relatable to and such a part of the daily life of the average viewer, were woven into Star Trek so that a writer could make use of military concepts with a word or two and know for a fact that the audience knew exactly what he was trying to get across. That said, I can see how you might think that Starfleet isn't the military if the first Star Trek series you saw was something else, or if your favorite Star Trek series came later. Beyond war and military elements, American culture impacted even the characters of Star Trek. In one of my favorite examples, you can see America's culture, America's fascination with some British culture and Russian culture all coming together to form the character that is Pavel Chekhov. If you've never heard this story before, you're in for a treat because this is one of those stories that no one really knows how much is truth and how much is fiction. On the American side of things, Star Trek had a fairly large demographics problem. In a memo Roddenberry wrote, he commented that, to the youth segments of the audience, Kirk and Spock come off as middle-aged. We need youthful attitudes and perspectives. To appeal to this demographic, Roddenberry cast Walter... You ever have a moment when you realized you never heard a certain word spoken and you don't know the correct way to say it? Hold on a second here. How to pronounce...
Koenig. Koenig.
Really? Huh. Well, okay then. Roddenberry cast Walter Koenig. Part of the reason they cast Koenig was because his looks were very similar to Davy Jones, the only member of the TV show / band The Monkees who was actually British, and quite the teen heartthrob at the time. But the really fun part is the fact that the TV show The Monkees, a TV show in which some actors take on the role of band members, was only greenlit in light of the success of a movie, A Hard Day's Night, a film in which band members, the Beatles, take on the role of actors who are playing the role of band members. So Walter Koenig got the job because he was close enough in resemblance to a British guy on an American TV show that was a parody of a popular British band, and it was all done because Star Trek wanted to tap into the preteen girl demographic that had fallen for Davy Jones. And this is where things slip from verifiable facts to verifiable-ish fact-like information. Allegedly, the official newspaper of the Communist Party, Pravda, criticized Star Trek for being typically capitalistic, and questioned why there weren't any Russian crewmen. So Roddenberry made Chekhov Russian, and now everyone is looking for nuclear vessels and space whales. The only reason all this is only verifiable-ish is that there's no record of Pravda ever writing this article, and no one associated with Star Trek ever saw the editorial. In fact, Shatner writes the whole thing off as a publicity stunt in his book, Star Trek Memories. But in the 1996 book, Inside Star Trek, The Real Story, they reproduce a letter Roddenberry sent to the Minister of Cultural Affairs in Moscow apologizing for not including any Russians and telling them about Chekhov. So which is it? Did Chekhov become Russian because of a letter? Was it just a random decision? Was it because Gene Roddenberry was actually a communist? No one really knows, though I doubt the last one there, and would classify more as a humanist. But it is an example of how random and absurd bits of cultures can have long-lasting effects on TV shows. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please share it, and as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that bell icon to be kept up to date with all the new videos that I release on this channel. And as always, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.